time to identify and highlight exactly where the flows were coming from, based on the parcels of Times Square, as well as the total cost breakdown for all the drainage improvements in the drainage shed. So, Sean, if you want to kind of take it from there, maybe give a background and overview of how this whole effort started and your updated analysis.
Okay, sure. Hi, everybody. So I said some of this in the last meeting, but I'll repeat some of the things. This memo came about because we were doing design work for the city to design the storm drainage system to accommodate the Times Square property. And during that design, we discovered that there was flows coming from the Washington Middle School, and those flows were enough that the system we had designed wasn't going to be sufficient, it wasn't adequate. So we did some more analysis, and we figured out that the downstream piping where we had intended to run the flows was going to be inadequate for both the storm flows from the Times Square property and that was coming from Washington School. So we had to rethink what had to happen and devise a method to get flows maybe going in two directions instead of just one. So we looked at that and we prepared a memo to sort of capture and memorialize what it was we discovered. And we, in that previous memo, had also said that we identified what the costs might have been if the Washington School flows were picked up and what the facilities would cost to do that. We have since, after the last meeting, there was a lot of questions. I've gone back and we revised the memo. This time, we just basically tried to explain things a little bit more in more detail. We were requested to identify costs for the entire system, not just the costs for the school. So we've done that. And I want to point out that there is a mistake that I discovered just a little bit ago. In the table 2 in that memo, I identified the costs for lots A and lot B in reverse. I had them transposed. So it doesn't really make much difference, but they were the wrong lot listed with the wrong cost. So I fixed that, sent a new version to the city. So if anybody would like that, I'm sure they can get that to you. But the costs in the end are still the same. It's just I had them on the wrong lot. So we've gone through and identified that and just sort of pointed out what facilities would be needed. One, if it was just Times Square, and then 2, what facilities would be needed if the school flows were added in. In the memo and the things we looked at, the analysis, we looked at 2 different alternatives for capturing and getting the flows off into this and out to the city's storm collection system. That's just an exercise to sort of memorialize again what we came up with. They don't really matter as far as the school is concerned. In either case, the facilities necessary to capture what comes from the school's property are exactly the same. So those costs are identified just once because it's the same in both cases. That's it in a nutshell for the most part. We did add some language again to the memo, sort of identifying the purpose of everything so it wasn't so nebulous. And I think we did that adequately, but if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Hey Sean, before you're done, could you maybe just take a moment and give us an overview of the proposed solution that is outlined in the alternatives? Maybe just kind of walk us through it. The way I look at it is, at least from the school site, there are 2 proposed connections to the storm drain system, one along the southern edge of Citrus Fair Drive, and then another one from the proposed lid facility, and it kind of connects and interties with proposed improvements that are on the Times Square property. And I think, just pointing out that what your color coding means on those figures. If you could maybe just take a few minutes, I think it might be valuable just to walk us through that.
Sure. Okay. So on the figures in there, we've color coded the lots, lot A, B, and C, nice bright colors so you can identify them. And we've also in figures 3 and 4, we have shown the improvements that we come up with that would be necessary to convey the flows. I'm going to back up a little bit. So in the south, there's an existing 24-inch storm drain that runs across lot A, and it has a remaining capacity of a little over 7 cubic feet per second. In our calculations, we figured that from the Times Square property, it's going to be just under 7 cubic feet per second coming off. And so by itself, that pipe was adequate. The flows that come from the school, there's 2 discharge points, and they add up to just under 7 cubic feet per second. Also, they're almost the same, not quite, but close. And when you combine those with the other ones from the Times Square, now we have 12 or 13 something CFS. That existing pipe just doesn't cut it. So what we looked at was splitting flows and taking something less than the remaining 7 CFS and going towards the south where we have the capacity for that, and taking the remainder and going up to the north, because there's another set of pipes in the north that we can discharge to that would be able to handle the flows, we think. So what we proposed in figure 3, and the memo is kind of the best one to look at probably, and it shows that we take a portion of the flow from the lot B, which is the bigger of those parcels, this the ADH, planned ADH facilities there. And we take about half of their flows and we combine those with the existing 4 CFS or so that comes from the school and their bubble up location, which is on lot C, and pipes those to the existing storm drain system on the north. And then likewise, going to the south, we take the other half of lot B, what comes off of lot C for the most part, and lot A, and the smaller flows from the school, which is coming from the new, which will come from the new LID feature, kind of at the south end of the school where the new facilities are being built. And that captures all those together and takes them as we had planned previously. When you look at that, and the way we distributed the cost and try to figure these things out was what size pipes do we need without the school and what size pipes do we need with the school. And that's how we kind of figured this out. So there's on the south end, there's a 15-inch storm drain that has to extend from the school's facilities over to where the new storm drain is going to get built someday. And then the pipe that ties to has to be upsized a little bit. I think it was from a 18-inch to 24-inch until it gets to the next storm drain structure, and then everything's big enough downstream already. So we have to upsize that small pipe. On the north end, we have a bit longer to go. The pipe has to be a little longer, and we have to extend an 18-inch storm drain from the bubble up to a point about halfway down Citrus Fair Drive. And there was a planned storm, a 12-inch storm drain going in there for to serve the new AVH facility, but that pipe would need to be upsized to 18-inch and connect to the new 18-inch coming from the bubble facility. So that's how those got determined, is from those things. That's probably a lot to absorb. So if anybody has any questions about what that really means or looks like, I'll try to answer your questions. David, did I cover it as well as you wanted?
Yeah, I think that was great. And just for a point of clarification, and again, I'm looking at figure 3 on page 15 of the packet. There's the blue storm drain, 18-inch storm drain on the north side of the parcel B or lot B, which is the future Alexander Valley Wellness Center parcel. Correct me, that 18-inch storm drain is not there currently. That would we checked the plan, or
none of these are here now. David.
None of, okay. And likewise with the 24-inch blue section connecting to the 15-inch storm drain, that section would be new.
Well, so they're all new. Again, going back, if we didn't say before we knew that the school had the outflows coming onto the property, we had sized the storm drain piping, and it was a little smaller than we showed. So the blue pipes are just those that end up needing to be upsized a little bit to accommodate the additional flow. The purple pipes, or magenta, I guess, are completely new pipes that would be necessary to convey flows from the school's facilities to the planned storm drain systems. So those wouldn't be there at all without, if there was no storm drain flows coming from the school. And then the green and black were just ones that we already had on the site. The green is mostly for serving lot B in the AVH facility. And then the black pipes are for everybody else.
All right, well, thank you, Sean. Chair Lands, Vice Mayor, I'll turn it back to you. I just wanted to make sure we kind of laid out, the background for how this proposed engineering solution was developed. Ultimately, our goal was to develop a solution that works, for all the parties, at least from an engineering perspective, and seek agreement that the proposed engineering solution is what would work for the school district, for the city, and for the lot B developer or the wellness center. And then from that, if we agree with the proposed solution, talk about kind of the details on how we physically undertake the improvements that are necessary and when, so kind of a timing issue. And then there's the cost component, of course. And so we I think tried to, at least I say we, it was really Sean Jean and his team who did all the analysis and work, but tried to break out those costs in such a way that you could see how they're related to one another for the overall project, to address, I think, the comments that were made at the previous meeting. So I guess my hope is that the subcommittee, in looking at this, will look at the, kind of first is the proposed solution and determine if what's outlined here works, and then focus on kind of next discussion about if, how, and when.
Thank you, David. I really appreciate that. If you don't mind, Sean, I want to ask you just one quick question about this. On figure 3, the Washington Street extension that shows the black 24-inch storm drain, that is not currently in, correct? You're on mute, Sean.
Oh, sorry, I thought I unmuted myself. The only storm drain that exists is the gray one that you see extending across lot A, the pink lot.
So, so that would be another thing we'd have to talk about, is if this plan was accepted, what do we do until that starts going through for the lid feature, basically? And so that's just something to keep in mind, what we would do with that water because it won't have that 24-inch storm drain to go. It'll go to nowhere in the middle of the field until it's developed by the city. So just something to think about, how we're going to handle that between all of us if this conversation goes the direction we want. So I'd like to just keep everybody as positive and polite as we can with the questions, and keep them, moving forward, because I want to make this, I want us to have solutions out of this meeting. And so I'm hoping we can start there. So I would start with either Beth, Ashley, or Preston and see your feelings on what you have here and what, the questions you have for Sean.
You want to go first, Beth?
Sure, go ahead, Preston.
So just a couple questions and thoughts, not necessarily going to be answered right now. I've read through the document and then just listened with further clarification here. And my understanding is that the current drainage and infrastructure and state of development of those lots handles the historic sheet flow that comes across all uphill parcels. But that wasn't initially accounted for in the calculations. And then when it came to light later, new calculations were done to accommodate those, it seems. And then has CEQA been done on these 3 lots and the potential development, and how does CEQA address the infiltration value of these lots prior to hardscaping them?
I can-
There's secret questions. You should probably answer that.
I can answer the sequel question. A mitigated negative declaration was prepared and circulated for the wellness center. It's actually available. A link to it is on our website, the City of Cloverdale website. The Planning Commission has not reviewed and made a recommendation on the mitigated neg deck. Ultimately, they'll be responsible for considering the environmental document along with the project entitlements for Times Square, but that has not been brought forward yet. But the document did go through the 30-day public review process. Kevin would have to look at it and look at the drainage analysis to look at the environmental impacts of the drainage analysis section of the CEQA document.
Preston, more comments? No? Not right now?
No, that was just my 2 main thoughts right now.
Todd, I appreciate you wanting us to reach an agreement. I think we have some fundamental differences of understanding. We're not developing the property, and so we still have concerns about how we are being held responsible for the drainage that we need to do our own analysis of before we can reach an agreement. We have concerns because there was development done upstream, uphill from us with inadequate drainage, and the drains across our property, and that we've had to deal with, especially as we, do make changes and renovations and additions to our campus. So that's a concern. I'm concerned with the amount of pavement in the proposed development of it's a parking lot. So I think we need an analysis about regarding that in relation to runoff and drainage, because a big portion of the property, the proposed development is paved. And we're not completely clear on our role or responsibility in this because it's not our development. So that's what I'll share for now. So I don't think we can really, we can continue to discuss this, but we're not ready to make an agreement. I'll also say, I think this meeting has turned into a discussion of development as opposed to a broader discussion of our collaboration and efforts to improve, and strengthen the community and the relationship between the city and the schools. So I would suggest that this needs its own meeting rather than the joint city schools meeting, and that we have a dedicated session just to this topic. But I'll let Ashley or Preston add to that.
I just think we need a little more time to review everything, but I would like to get this resolved. We've been talking about this for a long time, so I would propose, after everybody's had a chance to comment here, that maybe we can schedule a meeting in the near future, maybe 2-3 weeks out, and come back and address just this issue and see if we can hammer it out.
I agree with them. I think it needs its own meeting.
Gus?
Thank you, Vice Mayor Todd. Preston, Betha, Ashley, I just want to make sure that you have everything you need from us, the city, to make your decisions on what you want to do. Before, I got the impression that there was a lack of information that you had received from us. You have everything you need to make your decisions.
If I may jump in, Chair Todd.
Please Kevin.
Just wanted to let you know that we had not seen, Van Pelt has not seen this report until mid-afternoon today. The date on the report is May 12th. So we have no analysis and just a narrative and none associated documents, calculations, cost breakdowns, engineering drawings, et cetera, And to go back to Preston's comment to David, if the neg deck was based on prior calculations, wouldn't that neg deck be no good? These are brand new calculations. Surely you've got to go back and redo your neg deck or the CEQA with these calculations when we move forward.
Is it possible that you could send us a list of the information that you need so that when we have our next meeting, you'll have everything you need to make a decision?
I will, yes, to the best of our ability, Gus, but here's what has to happen. Our team, including our consultants and attorneys, need time to meet, evaluate the documents, and then let you know what we need. And then we can, we may need to convene again if there are additional documents before the city and the schools meet to resolve the issue. We cannot say without doing a deeper analysis if there's anything else we need more time to look at everything with a team of people, including our own engineer and attorneys.
But I think this came out with the agenda Thursday afternoon, and so then it didn't get disseminated beyond those of us on the committee until for people to see in their inbox on Monday. I feel that I have most of the information I need in this document, but there may be some other questions. So I think if Gus's suggestion is perfect. If we can take a little time, put together any other information that we may need to request, send it to the city so that everybody there has time before the meeting. Say this is just a proposed, but say we had a week to get our stuff together, send it over to you guys, and then another week for everybody to prepare, fill in the blanks, and get together and have a meeting.
Can you just share with us a little bit what your time schedule looks like? When is that project going to be completed on your end?
Would you say project, Gus? What do you mean?
The new addition, the gymnasium, when is that going to be completed?
Washington.
In other words, when do we have to get this nailed down by?
We are hoping that it will be done by the end of December 2021. But a lot of our timelines, Kevin, you may have a more precise timeline for the gym and the multi at Washington.
No, you're absolutely correct.
But I would hope we can hammer this out long before December.
Well, my question would be to Kevin, when do we have to do this drainage with Regi or whoever you're using on site? Is this something that needs to be done by July, by August? What do you think? Kevin?
We're not the driver of this work, Todd.
Okay. Well, then I mean, I'd personally rather hammer it out as soon as possible. So Preston, Ashley, and Betha, do you want to try to schedule something now and put it 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, something like that?
In looking at my own, it's the end of the school year. So in looking at my own calendar, I'm proposing that our team meets in the next 2 weeks. There may be additional documentation. I wish it could be that fast, you guys. I'm sorry. It's the end of the school year. So that we meet and in the meantime, we'll have a chance to go through the documents and figure out if there's any other information we need. So I don't think that'll be an additional delay. We should know that before we come together as a schools team. And then, we could set up a meeting maybe 3 weeks from now, realistically. But I think we could put a tentative date, Todd, on the calendar, and then we can follow up if there's documentation we need that takes a while. That might delay it, but let's look for a date in maybe 3 weeks.
So I'm hearing we could prepare a response and questions for the city within 2 weeks. And then the city would, if a week is long enough for you all, or do you need 2 weeks? Is 1 to 2 weeks after that to try and get a meeting together, this done?
David, what do you think, or Kevin?
I mean, we would want to respond, as quickly as we can. I guess it depends on the nature and extent of the questions and the evaluation required. And I'm mindful. I know our consulting engineer here has got a busy staff and a busy team, and I want to acknowledge that the time here has been difficult to because they are busy to get it back to the group sooner, but we would want a quick turnaround as possible. Maybe just to be fair, 2 weeks might be supported, just to make sure we cover all of our bases and factor in the time that Belgian and Race needs to and do any additional might be necessary.
We'll do our best. We'll do it as fast as we possibly can.
So we're looking at the week of the 14th through the 18th.
Yeah.
Is there any date in there that works perfect for everyone? I would start by saying, let's see here, Tuesday afternoon. Let's start there.
Tuesday the 15th.
Tuesday the
Make a
15th.
motion for that.
Does David or Kevin or Sean, do you guys have or Gus, anything that says no on that date?
Chair Lands, Kevin and I have the Planning and Sustainability Subcommittee on Tuesday the 15th in the afternoon from 4 to 5:30, but we can meet after that.
Would that work for Preston, Betha? I see Ashley shaking her head.
I can make
So
that
if we
work.
said 5:30 on Tuesday the 15th.
Tuesday the 15th, 5:30.
And I believe Superintendent McLean, I think the issue for us meeting as a group is if it's all the same subcommittee members, it's technically a Brown Act, so we have to agendize it.
Mhm.
We can just have one item on the agenda with that. So Irene, are you good with that? Creating the agenda for that and everything, and thank you so much.
And is 5:30 enough turnaround time for you guys from your other meeting?
David, that would be on you.
It's a little tight, but we can do our best to.
Do you want a 5:45 or a 6 o'clock?
5:45 might be fair if that works for the team.
And I think in all fairness to city staff, as David said, a lot's going to depend on the questions that you're asking and how much detail they're going to have to get together. So I think the 15th of June is a good first start, but we may have to push that back. So, and hopefully as soon as they get a look at those questions, they'll be able to see whether the 15th would work or not.
Absolutely agree. All right, well, that
And
works for
maybe
that
if
one.
there's still some questions that need more time, maybe we could get some things addressed that on the 15th and wrap it up in a follow-up meeting.
Great, that works. And I appreciate everybody's cooperation with that, making this happen. And if it changes, it changes. But at least we have something tentative. Okay, with that, anything else on this? I just want to wait. Irene, I don't see any hands up, but I'll just ask if anyone in the attendees in the public want to make a comment on this item. Going.
I do not see a hand.
Either. Then we will move forward to 5B. Review and finalize the student liaison application for the next school year.
Chair Lance, I'm happy to introduce this item. This is part of our annual process of releasing the application for City Council liaison. We traditionally release it in May for the following school year. This application was updated last year for really two reasons. One was to increase the amount of the scholarship from $500 to $750. And the other change was that we moved the application due date kind of back in time. And so it now reflects August 31st. So those are two matters that, as part of review of this application, the subcommittee may want to take up, or just keep it as is based on last year's practice. But otherwise, staff can make any other changes or updates you think is appropriate based on the student liaison program. And of course, I know our council, speaking for them, and they're obviously here, highly values the role of the student liaison and their contribution to the city council meetings, and of course the updates that are always so fun to hear about from our student liaisons, during council meetings.
Thank you, David. I know we went over this last year and those changes are great for this. Is there any other changes or anything that you guys would want to recommend for this application? Beth, I see you're off mute.
Well, I know I was already off mute. I think what's on my mind is sort of a bigger question of how we bring our, our board and committee representatives who are all students together and give them opportunities to kind of build their skills and their leadership, how we can foster that collaboratively. I see it on the city council meetings, our board meetings, our student representatives, that it feels like a leadership opportunity that we can strengthen. But I don't have an answer. I'm just thinking, I can work with David perhaps because certain things come across my desk, and usually the representatives for the city council are our students or for this committee, and that we just kind of collaborate to get them involved. This hasn't been a quote unquote normal year. And as my first year as superintendent, some of those things are new, and I'm fielding a lot of things, but there were a few leadership opportunities that I think would have benefited our representatives. And I'd like them to have time to work together or, attend a leadership seminar together, a conference of youth leaders together, something like that.
And would you propose that in addition to just being the liaison? Would that be done through the school, through the city? Do you have any ideas?
I do have ideas. I don't think it has to be formalized through this process, but I do feel like it's a collaboration in terms of our efforts to really use our platform or the committees to build that civic engagement and the skills that come from being on a committee like this. and really actively foster that. So it doesn't need to be represented in the, in the application or the process or documents. I just think this is what I'm thinking about right now.
I think it's great ideas, and I was just reading through all what they're going to complete the following to see if there's anything that already covered that we could just add into it, or if we should maybe add another line that says something along those lines. But it really doesn't. It's not too specific on what their duties are, so that's a good thing. It's not very specific. Okay, yeah. Other than attending the meetings, I mean, if it could be suggested that we say that they could attend a leadership conference or things if offered, maybe put it in the top of the application.
We could say
Or do you-
something as simple as, when opportunities arise to, to participate in, leadership, in youth leadership opportunities, the city and schools will collaborate to, to support your attendance or something like that.
What do you
They're
think, David?
usually,
Yeah, we staff can certainly amend the application. We can add like either on this, probably be better on the second page where it has the 4 requirements. We could put a 5 in there and, participate in leadership opportunities that, build or enhance civic engagement in the community of Cloverdale, something like that.
The only problem with putting it on that spot is that says they're required to do certain things.
Right.
So I was thinking if it was just maybe if I was just looking at the top of it where it says what they're kind of expected to do.
Mhm.
Or just
Yeah.
use the wording as opportunities that may arise. Then it's not that they have to, but if it does happen.
I just want to make sure that they're not feeling like they're required to do something that we're setting them up for failure if we don't line it up for them or help them out through it. But somewhere in there along that process, I think we can make that happen.
Todd, I agree with you that if it's just in sort of the description of the role, and we say that when opportunities arise, the city and school, the city and school will support your, attendance. They're usually really inexpensive. And it's usually something when I hear about it, I can either go to our counselor or the principal and say, there's this leadership opportunity. Can we invite our representatives? And it's as simple as that. There have been, I think, 2 or 3 this year. And I've participated. I was on a panel for one of them. It might be a little more expensive if it's in person, right? I know one of them was technically it would have been held in person in San Francisco, but there are, student representatives from all over the county who I think it would be great for them to be able to network. So I don't think it has to be a requirement as much as a description of, part of what you might do in your role. And then the pressure's on us instead of on them to connect them if the opportunity comes up.
So looking at timeframes, David, do we want to try to get something that approves that with something in it, or do you want to bring this back? Because it seems like it's getting pretty late in the year and in the middle of summer to bring this back and have it approved with that wording. So if we said to Betha and Preston and Ashley, with an addition of wording to the like, that we could actually approve this right here. Would that be okay with you guys?
Yeah.
Finalize this.
Yes. Yeah,
Sure.
because this needs to get out to kids.
We can update the application, I mean, fairly quickly. And if you feel comfortable, we'll send it to Superintendent McLean, have her take a look at it, and then if okay, we'll then finalize it and then have it make it available so that students can consider the application and decide whether they want to fill it out.
And it's really one sentence, David, and if you want help drafting it, I don't mean to make it more complicated than it needs to be. I think what I realized this year on our side is there were some missed opportunities to try to, we have these students in these roles, but we didn't really have an opportunity to connect them. In normal years, do we? I don't know, this wasn't, everything was virtual. So perhaps in other years, Todd or Preston, you might know, do they ever get to collaborate or attend a leadership conference together? Because we have one on city council, one on the board, one on our subcommittee, or more than one on our subcommittee. So it's just that one sentence that sort of says that we will support your leadership development, essentially. And so I'm fine. Like, I don't need to, micromanage it, or I'm fine approving it and moving forward without us having to bring it back.
Would you
So
just
then I'm hearing
like
David, I'll leave
to
it.
type out that sentence and send it over?
Sure.
Would that work for you, Irene?
Yes, it will.
And then this
Perfect.
way it's the way you want it.
Perfect. I like that. And then we can get it out as soon as possible and don't have to bring it back again at our next meeting. Okay, any comments from the public on that? I don't see any hands. Give you a couple seconds. And we're moving forward to 5C. Presentation of certificates to outgoing student liaison Summer and Jennifer Ramirez Mora. They are not here. It's kind of a tough thing to do the presentations, but I guess we can do it or we can wait. I don't know, David, what do you think? Summer's at practice and was unable to attend, so.
Chair Lance, our previous been to invite the scholarship participants, Kiwanis and Roycer, and do a press piece and picture where we recognize our student liaisons. Obviously this year, because of COVID and we're working virtually, we didn't schedule that. Our thought would be to bring forward the certificate of appreciation to the city council and have the council provide directly the certificates to our student liaisons and during and part of the council meeting. I think it'd be a great way to recognize their participation as student liaisons and their leadership.
I love that idea because, so we can maybe put out an email for them both to be at our next meeting and get on the agenda so they can both be there for that. And along with, should we notify Kiwanis and Roycer about this as well, David?
A great idea, Chair. We'd be happy to do that.
I know it's a tough time for the Roycer family right now, but I think they would send somebody to represent at least. Thank you. With no other comments, we'll move forward to 6A, standing item, update on hybrid learning. Betha?
Well, so far, our approach to hybrid learning is as many students as we can fit in a classroom. We're a small enough district that we've been able to be pretty flexible. In our elementary school, I may have shared that every student who wants to attend in person is able to attend 4 days a week. We've continued to use Wednesday as a distance learning day so we can take care of facilities and maintenance and cleaning. And at the high school and middle school, we have classes, we have sections, and we have grade levels where some students are able to come 4 days a week. Really depends on the size of the group. We expect and are passing or presenting a resolution this week in our board meeting to essentially, establish our expectation that we will open fully to in-person instruction in the fall, barring anything unforeseeable. I mean, a resurgence. The biggest concern is, social distance and how many students we can have in a classroom at a given time. But our expectation is that by August, when we reopen, all students will be attending in person. We do know that, there is likely to be a small group that wants to continue with some form of distance learning, and we're working on a solution for that. including for surveying families to see how many, and then working potentially with our North County Consortium to come up with a solution for those students that's better than just independent study, but that's still an unknown. So things have been going really well. We plan to have, in-person graduation. We're teetering, as everybody knows, right on that edge of yellow. And we know that the conditions for promotion and graduation are a little different in yellow than orange. So we're hoping that, as many people as possible can attend, but the unfortunate thing is that if people want to travel to, let's say, their grandchild's graduation, we still can't give them a definitive answer on how many invitations each student can have. But we are planning in person for both the middle school and the high school. And the high school is planning some other socially distant end of year activities, like a movie night and a few other things to try to make it feel a little bit more normal than last year. Yeah, so it's been going well. Knock on wood, we haven't had any positive cases or the need to quarantine. And now that I've said that, I'm going to literally knock on wood. So things, we've been able to keep everybody healthy and keep our cohorts pretty stable.
Thank you, Betha. Any questions for Betha from anyone?
Chair, I don't have a question. I have a comment. Last year for graduation, the city posted a banner at the plaza, and I'm not sure if there's a similar effort this year to recognize the graduating seniors, because it's a little different this year than it was last year. But I just want to put the offer on the table with if a group does come forward and want to hang a banner to recognize our graduating students. I'd be happy to get our staff to hang it up at the plaza, kind of in the central location.
Thank you, David. To remind me, I'm sorry, who put the banner together last year?
I know Christina Lepe Duarte was involved. Okay. I'm not sure. I think it was a group of volunteers. It just a small way of recognizing the graduating seniors, in a difficult environment. It sounds like this year at least they'll be able to have a graduation ceremony, so maybe not the same level of efforts being sought, but I just wanted to add that we could certainly, if it's still available, where if you wanted somewhere to hang it, we could put it in the plaza.
Okay, I don't know if you guys have seen the lawn signs, or that there is a big push for lawn signs, and I realize this isn't the same agenda item, but also the painted barrels are pretty cute. So but I will bring that up, David, to the high school staff and see if that's something that they're interested in pursuing. They probably can rally the parent group or the community. Thanks.
Beth, are you planning on having it on the football field or?
Yes.
Yeah, great. Good to hear.
Students won't be in risers. They'll be in chairs so that we can space them out.
I love it. As normal as possible. I love it. Anyone else? Anyone in the audience? I don't see any hands. Okay. Thank you, Betha. 6B, update on broadband access within the community.
Chair, I don't have much to report on that item. I know it was something that was of mutual interest of the city and the school district, particularly to support access to the internet. We did receive a report from the library that they've really enhanced their outdoor wireless services, which is great, and it certainly can provide opportunities for students in the community to connect to the internet. But I think the big push to ensure that there was opportunity to connect to the internet was available, and we're continuing to there's continued interest in broadband, and trying to improve those services as much as possible on a kind of case-by-case basis. But I defer to Superintendent McLean if she has anything she wanted to add.
I do. So there's a lot of emphasis on this at the state level, and so what our our technology director is attending a meeting this week. I think it's on Wednesday, because there's a push to, develop better infrastructure, not just getting out hotspots and so on. Really, our solution this year was to just continuously buy and give out hotspots, which the hotspot is one thing, the contract for the internet is another. We are collecting all of our hotspots and devices this summer so that we can get a clear picture. We didn't do that last year. This year we will be collecting them, which means that students will not have devices and hotspots through the summer. We need to be able to kind of take stock of where we are, what we need to replace, make repairs. And we're really concerned about just losing all of the equipment for, because we're not collecting it and there's no expectation that it has to be returned. So it's been an interesting process because the community is sometimes unaware. And, I will say, I think we can do a better job of making sure everyone knows that they can have, a hotspot. It's not, there's really no criteria that would cause us to say no to somebody if someone needs it. I'll say to this group, the city council representative, it's a little mortifying, but that's the student rep. Thank you, Todd, for staying on me. Lives extremely close to Jefferson and had been able to use the internet at Jefferson, but clearly not well enough, right? Was able to sign on to the Jefferson internet. And so our tech team had checked in with her, had gone, had checked her connectivity and all of that. But the last time that Todd said, hey, can you check on this again? I just said, just give her a hotspot. Like, I don't care. It's enough is enough. I mean, it was a month ago. We've made it through this whole year. She shouldn't be struggling with internet. And it's embarrassing, frankly. We need to do our jobs and make sure all of our kids are connected. So we got that taken care of. But I think that my mission, I'll say, what's really important to me is that there isn't a struggle. We've received quite a bit of funding that's earmarked for the for this infrastructure, meaning hotspots and improved access on our campuses. So if students are sitting near campus, they should be able to access, like if they're sitting in the park across from the high school, and to buy and repair devices. So no student should struggle with that. There are areas where there's no cell service and there's no other internet connectivity. And that is really where I think we have to come together and say, what is our best solution? Is there a place downtown? Is there the library, a place on campus? So we do have a handful of students who a hotspot's still not going to solve the problem. And those are the students I think I'm the most concerned about still.
Just out of curiosity, are they out in the county or are they within city limits?
I think the ones who are struggling are outside city limits. The ones who may not have good cell service and don't have other internet access. So our hotspot won't resolve their need. And then that makes it difficult because they don't have, an easy way to get into town. And especially if they don't drive or they don't have someone who can drive them, they may not have public transportation and so on. So the bigger issue of, connectivity and the ability to, for instance, do homework or access resources, after school or on the weekend is going to continue even after this pandemic. So I think it's really changed our thinking about access. And I think we're in a position, don't quote me, but I think we're in a position of needing to provide not only devices, but internet access on a broader scale ongoing. And that's where I think the broadband discussion at the state level may help.
Gus, you're on mute.
Sorry. I know at the last city council meeting, we received a report from the library. And they had mentioned that you could sit outside in their parking lot and you could access the Wi-Fi. Now, I know that's not the ideal situation for the youngsters that are out in the county area, but if they're in town, it's something. I don't know.
Well, I'll keep you guys posted if there's something going on that we can partner on, and, you know, having designated areas, you know, where, for instance, you know, right around our campus and in the park, I will sit at the picnic tables and use internet. But we probably need to have more than one place, and we may be able to coordinate that.
Thank you, Beth. I appreciate that. Any other comments or questions? All right. Next is the update on the MOU for the SRO.
Chair, I've invited Chief Ferguson here. I think the committee asked for this item to remain on the agenda, and so just want to, we want to keep it on and ensure that if the subcommittee wants to discuss the program further, that the chief's available to speak to this item. Unfortunately, the city still continues to experiencing staffing constraints within our police department that hamper our ability to provide, I think, the school resource officer at the level that the school would desire. But we want to obviously keep communications open and hear from the school in terms of what their needs and desires are, and seek opportunities where available for funding and things like that could help fill that need. But that's just a brief report. And again, the chief's here if we have any specific questions relative to the function or desire for a school resource officer.
Beth, the Preston or Ashley, anything?
I do want to mention that we are partnering on a juvenile diversion program. So we have, while we may not have an SRO, I do think it's a really a great collaboration. We have a really strong support person. Is this Giovanni? I haven't met him yet, Chief Ferguson, but I know that he really connects with kids. This is a partnership between the schools, the police department, and SOS. And the goal of it is to, limit the amount of contact or those initial contacts with law enforcement, or the type of discipline that has a negative, tends to predict a more negative outcome for students. So Chief, I don't know if there's anything you want to add, but I do feel like while it's not an SRO, it is a really great collaboration.
Yeah, we discussed this quite some time ago, well over a year ago, with Becky, who really heads this up. And I think it's an excellent program. We did have a recent discussion about it, and I know it's being sponsored. I think, is it for the next school year? They were able to come up with funding to be able to support that program. And I simply wanted Becky to kind of give me an outlook, if possible, on what the progress of this program is for Cloverdale. We'll always be responsive, but I think this is a great program, and I'm anxious to see the result of it. So I'm hoping it really turns out well.
Thank you, Chief. I definitely don't want to lose sight of this, and I want everyone to try to find the funding somehow to make this happen in the future. Seeing what I see every day, I coach 2 different softball teams. Ashley helps me with this, and the amount of vape canisters or little vapes that you find across the fields is disgusting, especially at a middle school level where we spend most of our time. And they're everywhere. It's riddled in the field, so you know that during the breaks, that's what's going on. And I've seen it firsthand because I have high school girls. The amount of partying and things that go on with these kids, it's been really difficult through the pandemic, and they've been spending a lot of time doing things they shouldn't be doing. I don't want to see it continue in the future, that these kids start going down the wrong paths. And I think that having the positive leadership through the SRO or through your juvenile diversion program is going to be what helps this, along with the social interactions that they were missing. But just seeing that it wasn't like what I see now. It was never as bad as I see now in the fields, and that's just a telltale to me. So if anyone else
I
has
mean,
any comments.
I'll just add to a little bit to what Todd was saying also, without saying any names or anything, but just the amount of girls that we expected to come out for softball in all of the levels. I mean, our middle school girls to our high school girls that aren't, and because we coach a bunch of girls who talk a lot, a lot of them are turning to other things, and that's why they're not playing sports anymore. And it's extremely disheartening.
And their level of condition because of the things they've been doing. I know of 2 girls that quit on our middle school team because they couldn't breathe, and all the students were like, well, that's because of what they've been doing for the past year. And so it just, it's truly affecting our students. And I want to try to get on top of it with all of us if we can. That's all it is. I don't want them in trouble, but I want some leadership there, positive support for them to show them the right direction. All right, there's no other comments or questions. We'll move on to D, update on the community pool.
Chair Lenz, I'm happy to provide an update on the community pool. We had a meeting that was set up and established by our 4th District Supervisor, James Gore, to discuss the upcoming pool season. And the plan for opening the pool is on target. We want to open the pool on Memorial Weekend and partner with the YMCA to provide the support staff for pool operations through Labor Day. They're likely to be on site a few days early just to kind of get prepped for the start of the pool season. And that really just covers kind of, the typical annual pool program. But what's of interest, I think, to the Joint City School Subcommittee is the program for heating the pool with the solar heating funding application that we jointly entered into with Sonoma County. And we did receive an update from Keith Liu, who's the staff member that works for the county and is overseeing the improvements. And their plan is to do the kind of the preliminary engineering work during the pool season with the goal of immediately going to construction once the pool season is over, to be able to have the contractor lined up and ready to go so they can initiate the design work, initiate the construction work to actually make the connection to the solar pool heating system. They're going to try to minimize impacts to the decking around the pool and make the connection in a way that minimizes impacts. Not clear if they're going to be able to do that or not. But I think the county's goal, while they've taken a long time to get to this point, is to not impact pool operations during the summer, but again, go right into construction with the completion of the pool season. Go ahead and finish the connections and be off and running with a newly installed solar pool heating system. The funding agreement still remains. I checked and we hadn't made any contributions to the county as of yet in terms of the allocation of costs, though they were inquiring about that because I think they've incurred some design costs for this additional plumbing work that has been triggered by County Department of Health regarding some of their safety improvements that the County Health Department required as part of this solar pool upgrade. So I fully anticipate that they're going to ask for the cost share from both the city and the school district at some point later in the fall when the project gets underway. So Chair Lenz, I think you received a similar update, and I know there was interest by Supervisor Gore, and talking about maybe some other opportunities to expand pool use, but I think and maybe even look at other partners. But I think our immediate goal was to get the pool season underway, have it be available for the community to utilize during the warm months of the summer, and complete the solar heating project, because it's been we've been waiting a long time for the county to complete this project.
Yeah, that was exactly it. They just didn't want to tear up the concrete while the pool's in use. They want to make sure it stayed in use for the summertime because of the delays from the county and the contractor and all that stuff. They, like David Kelly said, they're looking at maybe partnering with other people instead of YMCA or different directions for the future. The school district's name was brought up. I didn't think it was something that the school wanted to become the main person that controlled the pool, but just something to think about in the future if you're wanting to incorporate this more into your curriculum, or how you would want to handle it. If you have any ideas or anything that you would ever want, now's the time to start thinking about it, talking about it within yourself. And if you have any ideas for the future of the pool that you would want with the district, it'd be time to bring it up. Any questions or comments on that? All right, we'll move on to proposed housing projects and future growth. Kevin.
Okay. Well, since we last met, we have received another application. It's for 81 multifamily units on Oste Road, just south of Crocker Road. It's proposed to be an affordable housing project, and that is being reviewed by staff now. And one thing I wanted to bring up with the group is we are arranging for our attorneys to give us this presentation that they gave for the city of Sebastopol, sort of outlining the city's capabilities and responsibilities for accepting and reviewing applications, and what we can and can't do in light of new state laws and the big push for housing at the state level. So we'll certainly let you guys know the date, probably in the next few months, and we might try to do a joint with the Planning Commission. I've viewed the PowerPoint that they've given in Sebastopol, and it's full of a lot of interesting things, and it's going to be very helpful, I think, for the council and Planning Commission to understand, what we really can do in terms of development. So other than that, all the other projects are still sort of chugging along. That's probably the biggest news, would be that new one that I just described. The other ones are still moving through the process. And one other thing is the council did adopt I don't want to say moratorium, but a water hookup. I'll say moratorium because I don't know a better word, but I don't think that's the right word. But really, we've had discussions with our attorneys and others that doesn't preclude people from applying for development permits and planning permits and or building permits. It just really, at the end of the day, when the dwelling unit is constructed, that's when they would have to ask for special permission for a connection, or they would not be given a connection given the drought situation. So that's the end of my report. If you have any questions, let me know.
Kevin, who's the developer on that 81 units?
They are, I think they're called Pacific West. Hang on, I can look.
I wonder if there's anyone that we're already building with.
They've built in Sonoma County. They have a pretty decent reputation. I've looked up some of their projects. Trying to see their name here. It's got specific in the name. Let's see here. Well, it's the EG Design Group. It's not the name of I don't have it right at my fingertips, but
no worries.
I can send it over to you.
You said Aste and Crocker Road?
It's Pacific Associates. Pardon?
You said
It's a-
Asti and Crocker Road? Is that what you said?
Well, it's not quite
I'm just
on,
curious where that's
Clover.
at.
I meant to say south of Crocker Road, just
It's
south
the
of,
entrance to All Coast.
yeah.
Oh, okay. I was just
There's a
curious.
big empty
Thanks.
lot there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin, while we're on the subject of new apartment complexes like that, and seeing how we were talking about Wi-Fi, is there anything that we do as a city to ensure that there is maybe free access in the low to moderate income housing development to make sure that they do have access to Wi-Fi? Or are
Yeah,
we
that's it.
precluded from doing that?
Yeah, that is interesting. We don't necessarily condition projects to provide Wi-Fi, but that may be something they typically do a community room and a community facility. So I could see certainly requiring it there, but that could be a discussion that we could have with the developer about providing, site-wide Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we might want to think about starting to do that, just like we're starting to think about generators now for a lot of these facilities, especially storefronts. So.
Chair, if I can just a comment, we hear commentary that there's real significant concern about overcrowding in school facilities, and if there is data that it can really help us in our evaluation of projects, especially with our secret documents, to be able to look at what the impacts are under the public services section. So if we have a better understanding of the impacts of new development on school enrollment and school facilities, we can make sure that we're looking at that more carefully, and conveying that to the development community when they come in and they submit their application. Some consult with you early on, others don't, but we can do our best to convey some of the concerns and issues. But we don't necessarily want to speak, for the school district, because we want you to speak with your own voice and express your concerns. But we can certainly convey, what are some of the issues, and if you have any thoughts or ideas and how we can, better collaborate to address the impacts. Your input, I think, would be valuable to our conversations with the development community when they come to the city.
We've sort of taken that matter into our own hands, and we've hired a consultant to work with us on that, because developers actually have obligations, quite significant obligations that we would like to make sure get addressed up front. So our consultants were in attendance tonight. They will continue to work with us and support our efforts. Right now, David, we have capacity. So, and I'm going to speak from the standpoint of a superintendent regarding, what I think is important for a city to consider, separate from just whether or not there are seats in classrooms, safe routes to school, safe open spaces, healthy places for kids to meet and play, athletics facilities that are not only on school campuses, and developers should be participants in that. So there's the issue of our facilities being able to house the students. Right now, that's we're looking at aged and poor quality facilities, like temporary buildings that really need to be replaced with permanent facilities. They weren't intended to be forever buildings, and they're rotten essentially. So and we don't have, the more you build, the greater our bonding capacity, but we really don't want to keep putting poor quality solutions on our campuses. We want to give students better quality, facilities than that, that are going to last. So that's what we're working on. We're working on, level 2 developer fee assessments and so on. So we should have more to share with you in the near future. They will be part of our meeting when we reconvene to discuss the drainage.
Beth, just one real quick question for you, and then I'm going to go to Gus. You talked about bonding capacity. I'd be curious to what your consultants say regarding affordable or low-income housing and how that affects bonding capacity versus higher end homes and things along those lines, because of the percentages that our town has for affordable or lower income versus high income. And when you compare that to the rest of the county, we're very high or one-sided, I'd say. And so we have to be very careful with that. And with all the proposed development, I want you guys to really think about this and give us solid answers from your consultants as to how it truly affects the school district, because I know a little bit, but the city together as a whole, we really don't know. And I know this, there was a fire in one of the farm worker housings where they said there was 2.1 people living in them and there was 8 people in one home. So there's a lot more people, which mean a lot more kids. And I know that we had to get computers because I got the phone call to get computers for, I believe it was 5 children living in one home in that, and there's 3 affected homes. So I know that when you build 80, they say there's only a 1 kid maybe, but the numbers are going to be a lot higher. And so I'm just asking for you guys to really work on that and get some more solid numbers for us. Gus, please go ahead.
Thank you. Kevin, we just heard the superintendent say a few words about housing coming into Cloverdale, and we just heard Vice Mayor Lance say pretty much the same thing. But share with us, if you would, the requirements that are coming out of Sacramento for us to build so much affordable housing, and what control do we have over that? Or is it pretty much dictated already? I know we can't consider parking spaces anymore, but we're kind of hamstrung. I mean, I hear what the superintendent is saying. I also hear what Sacramento is saying. So where's the happy medium there?
And I mentioned that we're having a presentation prepared that goes through all the recent legislation that really talks about the ways cities can and cannot accommodate housing. And generally speaking, it is that we can't say no to housing. If there's 100%, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but there is a path that a developer can say, you haven't met your housing needs, and I'm claiming that, and now you really can't, I just need to get a building permit. So I don't have to come and ask for planning approval. There's some strings with that. It has to be a prevailing wage job and other things. So a developer will weigh that. But generally speaking, the state has taken the stance that we are in a deficit of housing. Every 5 to 7 years, they allocate a number of units we're supposed to have built, not us build personally, but just able to accommodate that number. And the accommodation is through the correct zoning. We're not putting, barriers to housing that are, what they would consider, cumbersome. So you're right, Gus, there's a lot of things, and I'm hoping that this presentation that we're going to have is going to shed a lot of light for the Planning Commission and the council, and hopefully the school district can also participate or listen in or listen to it afterwards. But the cards are, if we want to be no growth, the cards are definitely stacked against us, and we are subject to, lawsuits and things like that. And the rules that have come down, especially in the last 4 years, have taken a lot of control away from local governments and their ability to say, no, we're done with housing, and, trying to close up shop. So again, in the next few months, we'll have a real in-depth analysis of that with all the different bills that have passed.
And Todd, I hear exactly what you're saying when you have multiple families living in one unit, or, I'm concerned because it's not a safe environment. The perfect example, there was a fire in one of them. I mean, God forbid we lost life in that situation. It would have been a lot of life. I understand why people do it, because of the expenses and what it takes to rent a unit here in Cloverdale. So on one hand, we need more houses to accommodate that and alleviate that situation. On another hand, we have to be sensitive to the school district and their plight. And we also have to look at the city, our water capacity, our police. So now Sacramento is saying you will build the houses, and it's going to be interesting to see what this presentation really says. So thank you.
Yeah, Beth, go ahead.
So I want to be really clear that I'm not anti-growth. That's not my stance. And I'm not anti-multifamily, or affordable housing. I have real concerns. There's not a lot of infrastructure. There isn't health infrastructure, strong transportation infrastructure. There are limited grocery options. There aren't that many things in Cloverdale that support the growth so that, the children in our schools have healthy food to eat, can get to and from school, all of those things that go along with it. So my concern is not, I'm not anti-growth. I just want to be clear. I am concerned, and I think that developers have an obligation. So what we need to do is we need to learn how to leverage that obligation. Hey, you can come, you can build here. These are the things that you're going to do while you build that apartment building. You're going to do these other things. And for us to learn how to more effectively leverage that, developers' interests, so that we maintain a decent quality of life for the community and the children in our schools. And that's my interest. And it goes along with what you were saying, Gus, like we have to have water, we have to have, safety infrastructure. And I think that Alexander Valley Health has similar concerns. There's, where do you go for healthcare here? I am trying to get a vaccination clinic up here for students. The county has no interest. It's too far north, but our community doesn't necessarily have the ability to travel a great distance to Santa Rosa for a clinic. So there, I'm learning as someone who's relatively new to Cloverdale, how off the radar we are. And I think we have to continue to lobby, the county and continue to collectively make our voices heard, that we cannot continue to house, a labor force without infrastructure that supports that, which is what I think Cloverdale, does. And that's what multifamily housing does. So I want to be really clear, we're happy to have children in our schools. We want to be able to provide them with a decent school and not a piece of junk made out of a bunch of, awful, rotting buildings. That isn't fair to the children in our community. So that's where we're going to put pressure on developers to partner with us as the development warrants it.
I totally hear what you're saying. And I know Debbie Howell is on this meeting as well from the Alexander Valley Medical. And that may be somebody you want to talk to about getting vaccinations for the youngsters.
She and I are working on it. We're working on it.
Okay. And also, I'm hoping that Kevin will invite the entire school board to the presentation that we're going to be getting at our city council meeting, whenever that is, Kevin. So.
Certainly, I think it's valuable information for the whole community to understand, what we can and can't do. So it's I'm looking forward to having that presentation.
Thank you.
Debbie has her hand up. If we could bring her in, Irene. Hi, Debbie.
Hi. I just want to echo Betha's comments that we are not anti-growth either. We're just really concerned about the impact on the healthcare system. And there is a large impact with lower income households than higher income households. Their needs are greater and the resources available are limited. I'm working with Supervisor Gore on trying to get Sonoma County services up here more than we have right now, which, we've all been working with the county for years and years, but hopefully it will come to fruition. So I just want to reiterate that, anti-growth isn't the issue, it's the impact of that growth. And I know the city's considering all of those things as well. And the fact that they don't want to come up here and vaccinate our school kids is just mind-blowing, but we are working on that.
Thank you, Debbie. Any other comments or questions? I'm definitely interested in the presentation because I've read through a lot of the laws through the state, and I think there's some gray area, and I'm really curious on how that presentation is going to go, Kevin. I appreciate you arranging that. All right, we'll move forward to F, update on the school facility improvements. It's 6:30, so if we could push it through real quick, it'd be great.
Just telling, we're really working to have everything done by the end of December and have teachers in new classrooms. All of our current, we have a big push to do facility improvements this summer. They aren't necessarily things that expand access for the community, but they do improve, the student experience, like remodeling bathrooms, repainting, re-roofing, and so on. So all of the major construction should be done by the end of 2021.
Beautiful. Thank you, Betha. Any questions? Seeing none. Any information only memos or announcements? David? I don't know. Thank you. Future agenda items. Anything that anyone has? Nice. Seeing none, I like it.
I do, Todd, there was a topic that came up and I'm reading the minutes. I guess I said I'd follow up. So, just being able to report out on the pedestrian bridge. I don't think we ever, immediately following our meeting, I did pursue it with our maintenance and operations directors. So I can share information now, or I can share it later.
No, please go ahead.
Well, a proposal was made to the city to collaborate on rebuilding the bridge, and the city wasn't interested. And so we dismantled it because it was a safety hazard. And it has been, barricaded. And there is this kind of fencing. The way that it is, it kind of leaves this, how can I put it? This area that's a little bit off the radar. And from what I could gather when I went and I looked at it, it's become a little bit of, potential encampment or an area that can be misused for, whatever, because it's just not visible from the street. But we're not rebuilding it because of all of the different, factors, including the, and Todd, I think you may have spoken to this, the length of a bridge, what it would take to be ADA, CEQA, all these things. So it may be that it just needs to be better fenced off from the library side. I don't know. But there was a process that we went through, and there wasn't an interest, probably because of the potential cost and what it would take to rebuild the bridge under current standards.
Well, I think we could probably fence off our side maybe a little better, but I think the bulk of the pathway is on the school property. So, I don't know how you do that.
It's no longer a pathway. It's like,
no.
it's back
It's
behind
it's the parking lot.
creek bed.
Yeah, and then the mound. So
I spoke with Rick from your maintenance, and we talked a lot about this and came up with some solutions. I'll talk about them at the Tuesday Measure H meeting, because that might be the best place to, it's simple, cheap solutions for the school to make their property a little more safe from any type of homeless activity. And I think where the property lines fall, it would solve the problem for the city at the same time, the way it works out. So
Sounds good.
We can talk about that on Tuesday.
Yeah, the way it is now is just a little too, how do you say, janky? There's probably a more technical, it's not safe. It doesn't feel totally safe. So.
Well, it's just because people are used to being there, and there is still some, the pillars in the ground and things like that, if you block it off and it's out of sight, then it's definitely, they know it's not coming back, because it can't come back, unfortunately. Anything else from anyone? Okay, anything good of the order? I'd just like to say thanks for everybody keeping a positive attitude with our negotiations and setting something forward so we can get this done and keep moving forward for solutions versus where we have been in the past. So thank you.
Thanks.
And our next meeting, hopefully, is coming up on the 15th. If it changes, just, I'm sure Irene will put an email out and let us all know to what we can do. And if that, beyond that one, it'll be July 19th at 5 o'clock for the regularly scheduled meeting. And we'll adjourn at 6:36. Thank you all.